So now we are ready to test the actual session. First step is to make sure that the session produces the desired outcome and deliverables in the required form. Where do we see this? Well, we see this in our script. So let's go back to the script. Here we have a set of purposes, desired outcomes, and we want to make sure that the activities that we've set up in ThinkTank deliver these things. So first of all, we have an activity with a welcome intro, where we ask ourselves if this makes people feel welcome and ensure that they know each other and are behind the purpose of the purpose and the agenda for the session. What we've done here is provide information in a presentation format and provide a little speaking note for the discussion about who is who. So basically, we have some support, but something needs to happen more to drive this to a high extent. But there is something of this, we just need to be aware of it. The second thing we had was the icebreaker, and we can make sure that that the purpose is accomplished if we have shared some popular knowledge about the participants, and we've also introduced them to the basic functions of ThinkTank. And we shared some popular knowledge, which is about why these things are done, so maybe a little interesting and fun to do. And the second part, introducing to the basics functions of ThinkTank, well, we've introduced them to crowdsourcing and to the assessment, which are two of the major activities of ThinkTank. So I think we can safely say that we've accomplished that purpose. The second thing we need to do is do the what's called the solo test. So it's the test where the session leader or the designer tests the session out themselves as the first one. In order to do so, we have to set up ThinkTank with a session leader view and a thinker view. Let me show you how that is done. So here you see my original session. This has been made and set up in Chrome. In order to add a thinker's view, I'll select another browser. In this case, I'm choosing Edge, and I'm then going to log into my session as a guest, which is on learning.thinktank.net. I log in as a guest. The session ID is, you can see here, 207. And the passkey is the passkey I gave it. If you have forgotten the passkey, you can press on the man icon. You can go into the gear wheel. And here you can see the passkey, it's 1234. Then I'm adding an email, and I'm just adding a test email here, which is Nils. And this is guest, Thinker1, enter session. Right. So this session does not appear to be valid. So there is a problem with the login. So let's go see what that is. First of all, this is a normal error we get for guests, one of the only ones. We can then try again. We can make sure it's 107. It is 1234. We can do this again, 1234. We can do Nils Rander. Make sure we have the right address and click on enter session. All right, so in this case, it was most likely a problem with the input of the password. And that is one of the most typical errors you get when you have thinkers entering into a session. They actually input the wrong session number or the wrong passkey. Those are the two normal, if there's something wrong, that is the major issue. All right, so now we see what a thinker would see on the right side, and we see the session leader on the left. So let's look at with the process with the thinker's eyes. All right, so they access into the welcome session here, the welcome activity, and that looks pretty good. Do they have access to the instructions tab? So they sure do. So out here is the instructions tab, and you see the instructions tab is set up. Yeah, looks pretty good. All right, let's go to the second activity. Now we look at the PowerPoint presentations, and we look at the first slide. Now, when we move here, thinkers don't move there, which means that we have to drag them there. We do that by pressing the magnet. So we press the magnet, and then you see the view change here, and now they see this part. The question here is, do we need the comments open or closed? And as we talked about when we set it up, yeah, we think it's a good idea to set up the comments here. Right? Now, you could, if you wanted to, make sure that you have some instructions in terms of how you use the comments. So one of the things we might want to add here under the Thinker tab is instructions as to use of the comments. So that's what I'm going to do now. All right, so now I've added a few comments or instructions about how to use the comments field. Now I'm going to save this. The instructions, once there's something in there, it is green. They can see it. They can open it up, and all of a sudden they have a set of instructions if they have questions about how to participate in this activity. The normal standard issue we have with many ThinkTank sessions is that people actually forget to turn off this one, right? So chances are that at a certain point in time you will do that mistake. You will have these thumbnails showing up here so the thinker can navigate themselves through the different activities. Simple way to close that off is this one, as you know. All right. So this looks good. Let's look and see if we see the photo as well. So we take this one. Oh, it doesn't move. That's because we need to put on the magnet. We'll move them there. And then 3. And then magnet. And then that looks pretty good. Now, there is a function where you can actually do this automatically. It's a double click on this one. It turns blue. And now when I click on this one, these are automatically going to where I am. Normally, we do not want this on because we want as a session leaver to have the opportunity to move ahead and look at other things while the thinkers are looking at their screens. But it is possible, and it's a double click on this one. We turn it off with a double click again. So now I can move freely. I can look to other activities, and the thinkers are still seeing what they are. Right? So back to this one. So this one seems to work well. Let's go to the third one. Well, basically, let's just test the comments here. So if I needed to make a comment, someday, I add that one. And then this one will update. And it should appear here. Now, it doesn't. And that's another question you get from session leaders. Why can't I see a comment here? Well, it is because the comments are specific to specific slides. Think about that for a moment. If you want to edit a slide presentation with other people, you will need the comments for each single slide. So that's how this activity is set up. You can see that the comment is made on slide number 3. So in order to see the comments as a session leader, we'd have to go to the slide number 3, and this is where we see the comments. All right, next up, let's go to the first of the icebreaker activities. It's a brainstorm the wildest things. And I drag the thinker to that view. I need to take this one out because we want to start at a blank. There you go. Now, the problem we have here is actually that the thinker can see all of these things. We do not want them to do that. And the problem here is that we haven't shut this option off for seeing this one. So the first thing we'll do is shut that one off. And we will have to put them to where we need to start, which is on this question. So if you click on it, it's blue. Then in a minute, you will see this one update so you can see the actual question, right? Let's do a magnet here, and there you go. So now the thinker can do what only thing they need to do is look at the question and put in some responses. So let's put in some responses here. Kayak, skydive, mountain bike, kite surf, donuts, crocodile with a baseball bat. All right, so now we have a number of suggestions. We see the suggestions here. The next step is then for us to instruct people of how to move them into these ones. In order to do so, we of course need to open up for this view. So in order for that to happen, we need to do that. But remember, before you leave this activity, you have to turn it off, because next time you go in there, you want them to start with this question. Now, if this is the situation, we actually have not chose the best activity for what we want to do, because there is actually crowdsource activity that are designed to do different things within the same activity. It is called the multi-step crowdsource. It's right here, and let me show you what that could be. I'm going to move it over here. So the multi-step crowdsource is set up in a way so you can actually define different steps. So let's set this one up instead of this one. So we will take the first question here. Basically, we'll copy everything. So we'll do, I'm doing Shift, and then I'm clicking on the first and the last. I do Control-C. You can also right-click and go copy. Then it is actually possible to just move it down like this to the multi-step crowdsource and paste it in. And then you have the same content here. This is a default question, so we'll take that one out. And now we have everything that this one has up here. However, now we can define different views, and that's what we do here. Step number one, this is what they need to see. So we turn this one off, and we place them right there. And then step number two, we need them to see this. We turn this one on, and now they can see everything. So basically that's it. So now we have an activity with two steps, so we can start here. When we click on this one, we move to the other view, right? So let's have a look at this again. So this one is on, this one is off. All right, so now this one is set and ready to go. So basically we can take this one, we can either dump it out, or we can put it somewhere else just to make sure that everything works okay before we delete it. So let's move it out. All right. Now we have multi-step activity. We need to edit this one, of course. So this is a brainstorm. Bring some wild things. Timing was 9:30. All right, so now this activity is ready. So do we have the instructions? Thinkers? No, we need to copy the instructions. So that's why we do not just delete before we're sure the things are right. We usually call this copy, paste, delete in that order, just to check. Right? So we'll go down to this one. We'll go into the thinker instructions. We will do a simple Control-C. We can also do copy if you want, but Control-C. We go into the new activity, into the thinker, and then we add the content. So now we have the instructions in here. What you want to probably be a little bit aware of is that you can actually separate out step number one and step number two in terms of instructions. So if you just want the instructions for the first step, you can keep them there. If you go to step number two, you go in here and you say none. We'll just take everything out and save it. You then can see that there's instructions for step number one and no instructions for step number two. All right, so what we do here is then that we go to step number one. We copy out the elements we need. In this case, I'm going to take everything and then just delete things when I put it in under comments for step two. That's the first one that goes out. Instructions. Save. And I go back to step number one and just make sure that this one is, and we take out here out what we need and save.